Okay, so we're going to get started. So welcome everyone. So tonight's session is artificial intelligence or AI in family daycare. My slide won't click across. So to begin, I would like to acknowledge the country that we are all on. Now, I know that many of you are coming from very different lands. I'm currently on Ngunnawal country in Armidale in New South Wales, and I would like to acknowledge the people, the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future. I acknowledge that Aboriginal families have been caring for and educating children on this land for tens of thousands of years, and I hope that continues for tens of thousands of years into the future. Okay, so today's session is PD in Your Pocket, and it's funded by New South Wales Family Daycare Association. Now, you all should have received the PD in Your Pocket topic booklet. So that was available to download. If you didn't, there'll be a link on screen that you can copy and paste and download it from there, or you can go into the New South Wales Family Daycare Association's website and you can find it on there as well. I also have to tell you, certificates of participation will be emailed to you in the next week. Yeah, so just keep checking your email and also check your junk, because we all know that some things end up in junk. And if you haven't received your certificate in a week or so, just contact professional services at New South Wales Family Daycare, so nswfdc.org.au. Okay, so what are we covering tonight? We're covering artificial intelligence, generative AI, and conversational AI. So we're looking at things like documentation, observations, and things like that in relation to artificial intelligence. So we're talking about using it with children, but also one of the important things, safety around AI. And sometimes we may be using AI when we don't realise. So our in conversation tonight is with Donna, who's a family daycare educator here in Armidale. And it was great having a conversation with her and how she uses it. And also things to remember with AI. Okay, so when you registered, we asked you a few questions, and I'm sure if you've been in one of these sessions before, you will know that this is what we do, and we ask you a few questions and then we show you what the answers were. And so I only saw the answers earlier today because the office actually put the answers in. So the first question, have you tried artificial intelligence? So 46% of you said yes. There was 41% who'd said no, and 13 who weren't sure whether they've used it or not. So not quite half have used it, which is interesting. How do you feel about using AI in your service? Now, this was an interesting one. 38% of you said you're excited to use it in your service. 38% also said they weren't sure. So that's a large portion of you all. 10% of you said you're confident using AI, and that's great. And then 14% said they were nervous. I sometimes get nervous using AI as well, because in my head I hear the media and the talk and things about what AI can do, and I worry about what they're collecting. But as I'll show tonight, there's some different things that you can do to safeguard yourself for that. So the question about, do you believe AI could be beneficial to your service? So we had 58% of you that said yes, that they know, they believe that it can be beneficial. So 3% said no, and that's fine, that you might find a use for it tonight in my session, or you might realise that, no, actually, I don't need to use it, and that's fine, and that's okay as well. 39% of you said you're not sure. So it could go either way. You're not sure. Okay, so who am I? So my name's Dr. Jo Bird, and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of New England. And I'm a researcher, a lecturer. So I do lecture in early childhood and teach pre-service teachers. I've also been a preschool teacher for many, many years, and I've worked in lots of different settings. I did do several years in the office at a family daycare in Victoria. So I do have some experience visiting educators in their services. And I worked in a city, Melbourne. So we had high-rise housing commission houses. We also had very upmarket houses, and there was everything in between. So it was a really interesting service to work for. So my research, after many years of teaching, my research was looking at digital technologies with children. And I have done some work around robotics. And recently I've got into this whole thing about AI because students use AI. I use AI. My 4-year-old children use AI. And when I was asked about this session, I was like, yeah, that's a really interesting topic. And I not only was excited about presenting it, but I also had to learn some of the things that were possible with AI and have a practice and a go, including making images. I hadn't tried making images with AI before. So one of the things I'll talk about tonight a lot is the questions you ask AI. So in the first one, I said, I want a lecturer who researches robots with young children. And the first picture is what I got. So a lecturer being someone in a lab coat, someone with glasses. I don't have my glasses on tonight, but I normally have my glasses on when I'm doing computer work, and the children. So, and the robot being a typical what you would sort of picture when you think of a robot, you often think of that sort of design. I then refined it and said, I'm a preschool teacher who researches robots with young children. So then the image creator actually changed the image and put a female again in jeans sitting there with children in the background. And one actually looks like she's on her mobile phone, which is interesting. There's apples. Not sure why a teacher has apples. And this is what AI created. So all through my presentation tonight, I've actually used examples of images that I've created using an image creator, but I've also asked generative AI questions and got the answers to show you as well. Okay, so let's start. What is artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence, the definition is actually technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning. So comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. I'm having trouble speaking tonight. So it's simulate. So it's not actually human learning. There is a step, and sometimes we think that that step between AI and human thinking is quite a large one. Sometimes we think that it's actually quite close, and I don't know whether we can actually define what that difference is. So then I did ask the question of ChatGPT, which is one of the artificial intelligence programs or tools that we use at university. I use it often when I'm like, I know what I want to say, but I'm just not quite getting the right words. And I'll pop the sentence I've written in, and I'll say rephrase and give the sentence. It'll come back with something. Often what it comes back with is totally not quite on the ball. Other times it'll come back and it's quite good and I can use it. So I asked, what do family daycare educators want to know about artificial intelligence? I'll just make that a bit bigger because when I put it in there, it was quite small. So this is what AI thinks family daycare educators might be interested in. So things that, educational tools, things that AI can use to enhance learning experiences for children. That's fair enough. Educational tools, that could be a good thing. Safety and privacy, so understanding those safety issues. Integration with the curriculum. And this is quite a general sort of comment that it's made. Support for educators. How can AI assist in administrative tasks, lesson planning, communication with parents, and helping to streamline workload? We all like the sound of that. That would be awesome. The developmental impacts. So insights into how exposure to AI technologies might affect children's cognitive and social development. And I'm sure we've all got opinions on that. Training and resources and ethical considerations. So it's come up with quite a few interesting things that you guys might be interested in. I'm not sure if it got it correct or not. So I'll give you a bit of history around artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s, and some would actually say prior to that. But generally, human intelligence exhibited by machines has been around since the 1950s. In the 1980s, they actually worked out systems and machines that could learn from other information that was processed or given to the machine. And then in 2010s, that was where deep learning happened. So the machines created learning models and that mimicked human brain function. It mimics it, but doesn't get it correct all of the time. And that's something that you need to remember whenever you're doing anything with any artificial intelligence, is that you remember that you're the human. It's a tool and you're in control. And then in 2020s, so not that long ago, we actually were introduced to generative AI, which is the next sort of level or a different type of artificial intelligence. And that's where the deep learning models could actually use what they know to create further learning and original content. They don't necessarily create correct original content, but they do create original content. So that's a bit of a history lesson. So can AI be helpful? Well, if you've been around for as long as I have, or even older, you would remember paper maps. I grew up in Melbourne, so mine was a Melways, and I often refer to Melways as being the map. And you had to, well, I used to turn the map around depending on which way I was going. Now we have interactive maps on our phone, and so that actually works out where we are. So that's how artificial intelligence can be used with maps. Your banking apps, they use artificial intelligence. Online shopping, those ads that you get that relate to what you've searched before is generated by AI. Spelling and grammar checks, again, it's AI that actually does that. It's not a person sitting there going, oh, sorry, someone's just typed that wrong. That's a wrong spelling. We better go back and highlight that one for them. It's not a little person that runs around and does it. It is actually a machine that works it out and does it. So expanding the length of writing, filling in online forms, recognizing that, oh, this is a mobile phone number. You have your mobile phone number stored in your phone. So you're filling out a form and it says, oh, here's a suggestion. Do you want to use this phone number? And you just click it, go, you don't have to enter the digits. The weather. Now, I've always blamed the weathermen as getting the forecast wrong. Now we can blame AI that they're getting the forecast wrong. But people still have a say and an interaction and actually do some of the weather forecasting and predictions. Robot vacuums. Who would have thought that they involved artificial intelligence? But they do. Face ID. So if you use Face ID on your phone, it uses artificial intelligence. Security systems. The list goes on, and I could have sat there and written lots more and doing Google search of how else is AI used and things. So there is a big list. So in terms of getting to know AI, you might already be having some interactions with different AI tools, but in terms of your work and your work educating children, you might not have any idea or might not think about how AI could be used. I can't remember what suggestion I put in for that one. I think it was something to do with maps. How can how can AI be helpful? And it came up with an old man and having a cup of tea while he's reading his book. So yeah, some of them were okay, some of them, and I'll explain it as we go along, some of the pictures were definitely not right. Okay, next we come to generative AI, or Gen AI for short. So this is the technology that can actually create new things, original text, images, videos, and other content. So there's a big discussion in music industries now about AI and creating new songs or music using AI. And what are the ethics behind that? What are the implications of that? And things like that. So we need to start thinking about, well, if we say it's okay for this, is it then okay for this? And, how is this going to be used in the future? So again, I asked ChatGPT, what do family daycare educators want to know about generative artificial intelligence? So again, came up with a list of things. Some of them are actually similar to every AI tool as opposed to just the generative. So thinking about AI being more of an umbrella term, a collective, whereas the generative AI is where the AI can create new content. Okay, so creative content generation. So in terms of educators, how you can create educational materials, stories, songs, and activities. I was mucking around with my boys and we were saying, make up a song about, and I was giving, different suggestions to it. And we were saying different things and I was typing it in and it would come back and play a song. I have twin 4-year-old boys. 4-year-old boys are a bit obsessed with bodily functions. So you can imagine the song that they were getting generative AI to create. But it was really interesting to hear that song that they were creating, giving it different things. And then they were adding different words. And because it's leading up to Christmas and people have started talking about Christmas, they wanted Christmas in there. So it ended up being this whole full-on song. And they regularly say, Mummy, have you got your work computer here? Can we create another song? That's one way of doing that. So customizing the learning. So how can you tailor learning experiences to meet individual children's needs and interests? So that's an interesting one. Support play-based learning. How can it be used to support play-based learning? So it might come up with a list of activities. Communication tools. So if you have an interaction with a parent and you're trying to explain something and you think, yes, I've explained it really well to the parent, we both understood, and then the parent comes back to you later and says, actually, I'm not sure I totally understand. Can you explain it to me again? You could put their question or what you've explained and get AI to rephrase it, or put it in more simpler terms, make it more conversational, or when we're working with students, they often say, I need to write an academic essay. And that changes the tone and the style of the writing that the generative AI is creating. So it might be something like that. You might have to write a report to support an application for funding. And so it needs to be sort of a bit more academic, but it also needs to communicate everything that you want to communicate. So you might use AI to enhance what you're writing, even though it's your work and your knowledge of that child, but AI is just working on it, changing it, improving it, and things like that. Sometimes I'll take parts of what AI has suggested, or I might hear, like, it might use a word, and I might include that, but most of the words are mine, or I might bring in a phrase here or a phrase there. Ethical use, so concerns regarding those ethical implications of using it with children, and the appropriateness and the impact on child development. There's a lot of discussion around that impact on child development, on children with a lot of things that are new. And at the moment, we can't see into the future. We don't know what my 4-year-old boys are going to be like at 15, how they're going to be using technology, robots, AI, all the things that I research and look into. And yes, sometimes that worries me, but at the same time, I'm preparing them for a society that is digital and uses these objects and items and things. So training and implementation, so resources and training can use AI. Monitoring and assessment. And I've talked to educators about, asking AI, I've got a child that is doing this, and they might list off a few behaviours. Is that typical? And AI will come back, a typical, say 4-year-old should be doing blah, 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 and it'll give a whole list of things. So it may not necessarily answer the question, but it might give a broader overview of things that you can then go, oh, well, actually, they're doing that, or they're not doing that, or this is a concern. So it can be helpful. Okay, so this little table just shows the difference between AI and then generative AI. So the function for generative AI is generating personal, so marketing slogans, for example, for businesses based on customer profiles. So if you know that your business is going to target families with children under 5, of course, you're going to want a slogan and an advertising campaign that would fit that. Whether you'd ask AI to do it, yeah, might not be what you would do. So in terms of the learning process, with traditional AI, it executes predefined sorting algorithms. So it doesn't create anything new. It has to base it on the data that it already has, on the databases and things that it has. So in terms of flexibility, generative AI is highly adaptable. So it's continuously adapting all its information to then create. So it can create things like art and music from scratch. Traditional AI is usually limited to specific tasks, such as calculating monthly payroll with fixed formulas, and things like that. So it's really fixed. Human intervention. Generative AI, it says it can operate independently and minimal guidance is required for the creative output. When we get to the picture that I have of Australian money, we will bring in that whole idea that was created via generative AI, but it's missed the mark completely, and we can talk about that. Traditional AI requires constant human supervision, especially for safety critical systems. I would actually say all AI requires human supervision and things, and that's what we'll discuss a bit later on in part of the safety implications and things to consider. Okay, and then we have conversational AI. And so this is the one that helps computers interacting with people like a human. So I'm sure you've all rung up some kind of service, whether it be a phone service, gas, electricity, and you get whatever they're called, the little conversational robot that talks to you, asks questions. And, now please enter your customer ID number followed by the hash key. I'm sure we could all rabbit off different versions that we've heard. So that is conversational AI, where it actually has specific questions and asks to gather the information. And as long as that information meets the requirement, you move on to the next one. It also has things like, I remember getting frustrated on a phone call to a particular mobile phone company, and I swore, and it said, you've used words that I'm not allowed to interact with. I think was its phrase. This phone conversation is going to be cancelled, and it literally hung up on me. And I went, oh, okay, yep. And that was because its program was, you say these things and the person puts in this information and we keep moving along and we ask this information and this information. But if it does this list of things, including swearing, it hangs up. So if you get abusive with these robots, they often hang up on you. Sometimes they don't give you any warning and things like that, but they're the conversational AI. So it's asking for a particular thing and it's will check to make sure that that thing, whether it's a phone number and having the right number of digits, means that you can then progress to the next thing. So in terms of the difference between conversational AI and generative AI, conversational AI facilitates interaction and communication using natural language processing. So basically, how you would talk to conversational AI, it then takes that information to process, simply. Generative AI creates new information. So conversational AI isn't creating anything new. It's just taking what you say from over here, going, yep, and this fits in with what I need in my information. Yep, that works. Okay, so primary applications for conversational AI, it's that customer support, virtual assistants, educational bots. Generative AI, on the other hand, is that content generation. So thinking, creating new. So designing media creation, pictures for a PD in your pocket session, things like that. Technology use, so relies on those natural language processing models. So it's machine learning for understanding and responding. So if you, for example, had asked for your phone number and you missed a digit, it would recognize that you've missed a digit and then it would respond in a particular way. So the program or the coding related to it has, yes, it meets this criteria. You know, now I can respond with this. It doesn't assess that criteria for a correct phone number, for example. It just says, right, you've got, 8, 10 digits in a phone number. Yep, great. We've got those digits. We're right to go. But in actual fact, you might have put in 1111111, and it's not going to be right. So that's the difference. So in terms of generative AI, it leverages deep learning networks to generate text and images. So it actually keeps learning from whatever's out there and whatever it has access to, creates an image, but then actually keeps that image to then feed into the next image it creates. And I did this session, created the PowerPoints over a couple of days. And then when I went back a week or two later and I said to someone, oh, create some images for, I can't even remember what it was, a newsletter, I think it was. I said, I'll create some images and pop them in there. And because I'd done these ones, it was remembering what preferences I had to then give me some more. And it was quite interesting, that whole thing. So I kept being a lady with long hair and glasses. And one of the pictures even had a lab coat. And I was like, okay, not quite what I was after in this instance, but it's learning from what I wanted previously. So some of the examples for conversational AI are things like chatbots, bots, Siri, Amazon, Alexa, Hey Google, all of those sort of things. In terms of generative AI, it's ChatGPT, DALL-E, and Midjourney. I tend to use ChatGPT, and I've started to use that a bit more, so I use it and learn it, and I kind of understand, which has its downsides because it's also learning about me, which is interesting. So in terms of business impact, enhances user engagement and automates customer interaction. Not that you guys are going to necessarily use conversational AI in your business. You might to entertain the children and to get some learning happening with the children, but in a larger business like a mobile phone company, they would use it because it's less manpower. Generative AI drives innovation by automating creative processes. So yes, AI can be creative, but you can also be creative yourself and get it to add to what you've created. Or it might be a starting point. Often people say to me, oh, I just needed the start. Like, how do I start writing a letter of acceptance for a funding application? Or how do I write the start of my resume? These are all different things that generative AI can then search its database and come back with, oh, how about this suggestion? And if you say, oh, no, too formal, it'll change it. Or if I say, oh, no, that's really American, it'll change it. Okay, now using AI in documentation. So in terms of documentation, well, when I first started thinking about it, I was like, oh, this would be really handy because I could just talk to it and it could write my documentation and make it look all pretty and write it up nicely. Well, actually, not really. I still need to actually think about it and write about it within the sort of session. It can rewrite observations or plans. So you might have come up with an observation and you've written it, and then you sort of think, I've just jotted down a few notes. You can say, rewrite this. If you are signing in, it will keep what you've done and your preferences from previous times to inform your next session. If you're going in incognito, which means you're not signing in, you're not, it's not keeping a record of what your preferences are. Every time you shut it down, then it won't remember your preferences. So you'll find that you'll have to keep saying, well, actually, I want to include this, or I want to include that. In terms of rewriting your observational plans, so your plans in terms of what you're planning with the children, you might jot down a few notes and it might expand it out and give it a whole description, a big long description. Suggesting activities and extending activities. And this is one of the ones that I've actually gone, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Now, I've been an educator now for many, many years, close to 30 actually, which is a bit scary. And so extending activities is one of those areas that I think, oh, I always seem to rely on the same activities, or I always go back to, oh, this is fun. I know children enjoy that, but actually, is there something else we could be doing? So coming up with a list of suggested activities can be helpful. And remembering too that AI or generative AI is actually looking on the internet, on all the databases and information on the internet that it has access to. And some people and some companies will deny AI having access to their having access to their information, so that won't come up. But there is a lot of information out there, and there's also a lot of incorrect information, so something to be aware of. So examples of how to create something. I know with me, if someone tells me a whole example or writes down the instructions to a crochet thing that I need to do, and I sit there and go, oh, I can read it. I actually know what it all means, but to actually picture what I'm supposed to create, I can't do. Whereas putting it into generative AI, and I did this the other day, I put a pattern in and said, show me an example of what this creates. And it did. It wasn't perfect, but it gave me an idea. So if you're planning an activity, oh, I wonder what this is going to be like. So give me an example. Research. You know, you find a cicada in the yard. Oh, actually, I don't know too much about cicadas. I know they lose their outer shell. They make a loud noise. That's about all I know. Let's ask AI. Do some research. What about this? Oh, okay. And that is a good way of using AI. To change the style of a piece of writing. And this is often where I use it when I'm writing letters either to students or to supervisors and to centres. I might write it out and then I think, oh, it's a bit conversational style. So I put it into AI and say, make this more conversational. And some of the sentences I like, so I'll copy and paste them in. Other ones I think, that just sounds too academic and that's not how I speak, or someone's going to realise by reading that that's not my words, those sort of things. But it can change that style. So if you have something that's very academic, you might say, well, I want to have a conversation about this with parents. Give me a suggested script. And so it might write, you know, the script out for you. Or I need to have a hard conversation with parents about, you know, their child's ability or behaviour today. What sort of things can I think about? Their ideas. Expanding on a piece of writing. So you might be able to write a sentence on something. What else could I say about this? What else do I need to consider? And generative AI will come up with either a list of questions that you can then answer as part of expanding that writing, or it might change a sentence that has 10 words into a sentence that has 20 words, as an example. Okay, so the approved learning frameworks. Now, and I'm sure you are all familiar with the approved learning frameworks. So I did a bit of a search through both the Being, Belonging, Becoming and also My Time, Our Place in terms of what is covered. So now this might be a bit small for you to read. Both of them connected to outcome 4. Children are confident and involved learners, or in My Time, Our Place, children and young people are confident and involved learners. So it's things like exploring the purpose and function of a range of tools, media, sounds, and graphics. So if you're exploring AI with children or young people, you can have those conversations about, well, let's create a picture. Why not? Let's try something. Let's create a song, like my children did, those sort of things. So experimenting with digital technologies and different technologies. I have an Alexa in my bedroom, and often the boys come in and they often say, Alexa, tell us a joke. And Alexa will go into telling them a joke. And then they'll say, I want a joke about something. So what Alexa's doing is searching the internet for jokes that match the word. Maybe it might be a joke about, I don't know, cats. And so Alexa does a search of the internet of cats and comes back with a joke about cats. And then my boys have started adding extra parameters onto it. So it might have to be a kid's joke about cats and Christmas. That's funny. And then it might come back as a knock-knock joke. And then they say, but it can't be a knock-knock joke, and those sort of things. So they're learning all about it through their interactions. So use digital technologies and media to investigate and problem solve. Well, actually, we want to make a ramp outside for the cars. What sort of things could we use to make our ramp outside for the cars? And generative AI might come up with a whole list of items and things. They might be items and things that you have around, your house and your yard and your service. They might be things that parents have that you could ask parents, can we borrow those to make our ramp or our setting for cars? And then they both talk about for educators. So for educators to select the appropriate tools and also introduce those appropriate tools, technologies and media to provide the skills, knowledge and techniques to enhance children's learning. So we're not just introducing AI to children because, sounds like a fun thing. It's always talked about. We need them to, know what it's all about. Well, no, actually, we're teaching children because it's important. We're seeing it as an important thing. My boys learnt about Alexa and actually Google from, well, Google we taught to turn on our lights off and on, but that was me, so I could quietly turn off the lights and then sneak out of their room when they were asleep. Alexa, I use in the mornings. One of my things is, Alexa, please tell me about my day. And Alexa will list off what's in my calendar. She'll tell me the weather and she'll tell me the highlights of the news. And I sit there and say skip because I want some actually positive news as well as some of the, more serious news. But, I can say skip. And if one of the boys are around, I'll say skip the news today. Or if I'm in a good mood and I don't want to hear about the tragedy news that often comes up, I'll say skip the news today. Can you move on to the weather? What's the forecast for tomorrow? Oh, okay, it's going to be raining tomorrow. Better do washing today. Those sort of things. But I also talk to my boys about, we're using Alexa as a tool because we're learning this. We're learning about the weather. We're using it because we want to be entertained. We want to find a funny joke and things like that. So for educators also to provide opportunities for children to both construct and take apart materials as a strategy for learning. So when we're talking about the digital, we don't necessarily pull it all apart as you would, say, a piece of technology or a construction item, but we talk about the fact that how is Alexa, how does Alexa know the news? How does Alexa know the weather? How does the Alexa know that this joke's going to be funny when they ask for a funny joke? And most of the time, her funny jokes are just really silly. So we're teaching children to think about what's happening, what's behind the scenes. So unpacking what's happening and what's going on. Things about, creating a picture, and we've asked it a question in terms of, we want a red car and it needs to have a spoiler and it needs to have big headlights. And then we might change it to actually say, well, big headlights to generative AI are, bigger than what normal headlights look like, or they might be smaller, and explaining to children that generative AI doesn't actually know. We have to teach it. It's learning, but we have to actually work with it. So it also says for the educators to develop the skills and knowledge with digital technologies and media in their curriculum to use them confidently with children. So that's part of the reason why you've come along today, other than learning about AI for your own benefit, but also how it can improve time save for you, all of those things. But also, how are you going to introduce it to children? How are you going to introduce it to families? So I'll highlight that again. So developing your own, so educators' own confidence with technologies that are available to children and young people in the setting. So if children are using, a Google or Alexa, you actually need to understand how it works as well, so you can support them and make sure that they're using it appropriately, and that you're confident knowing that the children are safe, but also how to support them and encourage them. And also promote children's and young people's rights to explore a range of digital technologies. And that's one of the things that we, try and encourage and do. That, sometimes as educators, we may not know all about a technology, and we can say to the children, well, let's learn together. Well, I'm not sure about this. How about we do a bit more research? Or how about we just leave it? I'll do some research and then we can have another play another day. And that's what I had to do with my boys, because of course the parcel arrived. They're into opening up parcels and presents and things. They wanted to set it up. I hadn't used Alexa. I didn't really know about it. And I kept saying, hey, Alexa. And then eventually she said, you can just call me Alexa, because I was used to saying, hey, Google, turn on the lights or turn off the lights. So it's exploring, but also making sure that the children are safe as you're doing that. Okay, this was one I asked for in terms of activities for children. Now, all I said was, write me a list of 10 activities to do with children. I didn't give it an age group. I didn't give it any kind of information whatsoever. And this is what was created. And some of them, yeah, are quite good. Reading books together, encouraging them to point out pictures and predict what happens next. Yeah, fair enough. If I was presenting this to or planning this for a toddler, an 18-month-old, AI has got something wrong. And I'm not sure whether you're all reading this and checking it out, but AI has kind of missed the boat, because I wouldn't be giving buttons to an 18-month-old, because they're going to them. So they're not necessarily safe. And AI doesn't know that that's not safe. The other thing it came up with was rice, to explore textures and enhance sensory awareness. I'm not a food for educational purposes. I also work with Dr. Sue Elliott, who is a sustainability expert. And she regularly says to me, oh, no, you can't do that. Have you thought about the effect or things like that? So rice, I definitely cut out using food and things like rice, and coming up with more natural, sustainable examples. And also the message that we're sending children by providing an activity where they just play with food, if they're a baby, a toddler, even a preschooler, if on this hand I'm saying to you, yes, go play with this rice and have fun and enjoy the feeling, and on this hand I'm feeding you lunch that's rice, but you can't play and feel it and enjoy the sensory experience, you need to just eat it, we're giving them mixed messages, and it's not always easy. And I've just realised I need to keep moving. I do like to talk. Okay, so in terms of the planning cycle and artificial intelligence, yes, AI can help us in lots of areas in the planning cycle, but there are also some areas of the planning cycle that you as educators have to do. I'm sorry, but we haven't quite worked out an AI tool that can observe children and accurately write down an observation of children. So that's an educator job, definitely. In terms of your assessment, that is still an educator job. Yes, generative AI can assist in assessing the child. So you might actually put into generative AI, actually, this child is doing this, and you might list off 5 behaviours. Their age is, 3 and 7 months. Is that typical? And see what it comes up with. You knowing your children, it might come back with a list of things going, well, actually, maybe they could do this, this, and this, then that's okay. Or it might come back and say, if they're displaying these behaviours, recommend they see a paediatrician or, refer them on. Planning. Again, educator job. Generative AI, as in the previous slide, can actually help with some of those planning ideas. But like I said, you actually need to, I suppose, look at it, ensure that it meets your services needs, your needs as an educator, and the children's needs and interests for that plan. Implementing. I'm sorry, but we haven't got a little robot to run around and set up all our activities for us and clean up afterwards. It's an educator responsibility to implement what you plan. Sorry. In terms of evaluation, you still need to do the work, but generative AI can help and can assist, but it'll come back to that observation and what you saw the children doing that you'll be writing up and evaluating. And just remember, you are experienced educators, so rely on what you know of your children and their experiences to support your evaluation. Okay. One of the things that kept coming up and has come up with students that I teach and that educators that I've spoken to about their use of AI is what's called hallucinations in AI content. And when you think of a hallucination, it's something that's not quite real. So hallucinations in terms of AI, information that AI just makes up based on the data that they have access to, but they make it up. So things like made up facts. So cats are actually canines like dogs. That's not true. And it reminded me of, when toddlers are starting to talk and they call every female mum and every male dad, or they call, if they've got a cat at home, every animal that has fur and 4 legs is a cat. Cat, 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 and things like that. And it's kind of like AI is the toddler. Made up people. So the first person to walk on Mars was Sundar Pichai. In actual fact, no human's been to Mars, so that's a made-up fact. We had a student who wrote a whole assignment on a made-up person. It had references, it had the works, and there's just a few things that just didn't make sense. I did a Google and went, whoa, what's going on here? It was all based on AI made-up facts and statistics. 47% of all statistics are made up. How would you know that? How are they going to actually judge that, research that? Or any type of information, really. You've got to check what's going on. So if you ever hear someone talking about hallucinations in AI, that's what it is. It's where AI has kind of missed the boat pretty much completely. So can AI be used with children? I've already talked through several examples about how, AI can be used with children. This picture was using a robot with children. Again, the apples with pencils sticking in them. And every time I did educator, it came up with a female with long hair. It is quite, what's the word? I've lost the word. It will come up with very similar things. And then you might give it some more parameters and say it needs to have red hair, brown eyes, interesting earrings, things like that. So generative AI can also help children solve problems by providing them with new ways to think about and approach problems. So getting frustrated, not being able to make something or create something, or, you're in the garden and you want to research something and find out more, and then you think about actually what else could, I don't know, the lizard, the blue-tongued lizard that's in your yard, what else could it eat? What else does it need to survive? How is it going to make a home? All those sort of things. And you think about it a bit differently. So this is an example of Alexa. So this is the one I was talking about that's in my bedroom. And as I said, my boys like asking Alexa questions. And I've got one son that comes in now and will ask for the weather because he knows I ask for the weather every morning. And I've got an example and I hope you can all hear it okay.
Alexa, what's the forecast for today?
Right now in Armidale, it's 10 degrees Celsius with blue skies and sun. Today's forecast. Okay. So yes, so Alexa talked. It was 10 degrees in Armidale at that time of the morning. It probably didn't rise that much more from that. But yeah, so he understands the kind of questions that can come up. I put in there, so I was just making sure it didn't play it again. What is the weather forecast for today, please? One of the things that we often do is humanize artificial intelligence because they do, feed back to us. They do respond and things. When we first got Google, we were saying, Google blah. Hey, Google, play a song. Hey, Google, turn off the lights. Hey, Google, turn the lights on. And I realized that my boys were just saying, Mum, get me a drink. Mum, do this. Mum, do that. And I thought, I'm not actually modeling good behavior. So I started saying, what's the weather forecast for today, please? Alexa has responded to that, and she now says things like, you're welcome, Joe. Have a great day. I love that. Yeah, so I've started talking about it and talking to the children about, well, Alexa's helping us. We should be using our manners and saying yes and please and thank you and things. So that's something also to remember. One of the things that does happen is she will respond to my thank you, Alexa, and then she'll respond with, you're welcome, Joe. And I'll go, great, Alexa. And then she'll respond because she's trained to respond whenever I say something. So we can kind of keep that, comment, respond going for, a little while. So it's kind of fun to have a play and experience and a try of these things. Anyway, I did do a search of the generative AI, so the ones that are creating new content in terms of education. So these are some of the names that came up. As I said, I've used ChatGPT. I did look at Magic School, Canva's another one, Bing's another one that I've used. And you might be aware of others. This was just some of the programs. But what I suggest is if you want to have a play, pick one and have a play and learn the tool. It's like any digital tool. Don't just try this, try this, try this, try this, try this, and then get frustrated because things aren't working how you want. Pick one and have a go and spend some time getting to know it. Okay, I'm not sure whether you've heard about Love Heart AI. Now, Love Heart AI is designed by early childhood educators for work with children and educators. There are several of the apps that often centres use to document the children's learning and communicate with parents that have now introduced AI slightly under the radar, where they've actually done an update and it's come back that people have just accepted the update, not read the fine print, and it's actually said we're going to start introducing generative AI. So in terms of the centre where my boys go, they use a program and it now uses generative AI, but they choose if they use it. And I've seen some changes in people's program because I know they've turned it on. They still need to know my boys, and I can say to them, hey, I don't think that was a correct observation. Did that really happen? And they go, oh, I was just mucking around with AI. But they do it with me because I'm a lecturer in early childhood and technologies. So this is an example that I did where I'm in Love AI, Love Heart AI, and I press the plus and I can create a journal. Okay, so that's quite small, but 2 boys were enjoying playing in the leaves. They threw them up, scrunched them, enjoyed the noise they made, was what I wrote. And then I asked it to, give me some coaching is what they call it. And then the AI has returned with, sounds like a fun moment. What did you notice about their interaction with each other while they were playing with leaves? Okay, I hadn't given them an age at the start, so I said no interactions as they're 12 months old. And then AI has come back because it's added that information to the information that it has and gone, oh, at 12 months age, sensory experiences are key. So it's then gone, okay, yeah, you're right. No, social interactions, not as likely. Let's move on. So then it's talking about what did their facial expressions or body language tell you about their engagement with the leaves? So you can keep going and adding more and more and more. One of the things I'll say with this, and while you may be sitting there going, wow, this sounds fantastic, I'm going to give it a go. Just remember, and I haven't got to the safety stuff yet, I better keep moving. In terms of what you add, because I added a photo, but I also said 2 boys were playing in the leaves. So in the photo, you can't actually identify who they are unless you really know that example. And I was very careful of not putting their ages in and not providing too much information. But now we're going to move on to my interview with Donna. And Donna is a family daycare educator in Armidale, and she uses artificial intelligence. So I'm going to play the video and then come back. Okay, welcome to PD in Your Pocket, and this is Donna. So Donna, tell me a bit about yourself and your service.
So thank you for coming, thank you for having me. I've been doing family daycare for probably about 15 years.
So tonight's session is about AI and the use of AI. So I wonder if you'd like to share your journey with AI. So how did you feel about it when you first started using it? How do you feel now? And how did you become comfortable with it?
So I was really struggling, and then my friend, who is a school teacher, said to me, you don't need to put yourself through this. Like, you don't need to do this to yourself. Have you tried using an AI program? And I was like, what's an AI program? Who does that?
Yeah.
And she said, look, just try this out, see how you go. Watch a child type in an observation. Make sure you say to AI, write observation, write reflection, write follow-up, and see how you go. And then all of a sudden, all this language just came to me, like the words that I could use. I was stuck for words. Mm-hmm. I needed help, and I have to say, it's changed my whole outlook on my job.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about the sheep.
That's okay.
It's changed my whole outlook on my job. I really am 100% happy now with what I'm doing, as before I hit rock bottom and I just couldn't keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what made you become comfortable with using AI?
Was it just that trial and error, that having a go?
It was definitely trial and error. There was a lot of things that it took me a long time to work things out, which is, it's a process with everything, working things out, seeing out what program worked best for me, because I have tried a couple. The simplicity of use, because when you're trying to, like I said, take care of the kids, make sure everyone's happy, write your program, it's really, really hard to stop and think what you need to do. And it's just, so good. Like, I really enjoy it.
Yep, well, that's good. So can you explain how you use AI in your service? So for your planning, your documentation with children.
So I use AI, everyone will sit down, I'll take the photos of the children when I need to write an observation, so that when I have time for my programming and my observation, I can sit down and think, okay, the child said this, yes, this is what I've done, this is what I need to write, and then I just can put it in an AI program, type out exactly what I've done, and see, it comes up for you. It's not. I for a while actually felt like I was cheating the system. I really thought, I'm not. This isn't how it should be. I think I'm cheating the system. And then I thought, you know what? You're still doing the work. You're still putting the effort in. You're still trying as hard as you can. This is just a tool to make it easier.
Exactly, because you're the one that watches the children, takes the photo, takes the observation, types that observation in. It just works and fixes it up for you.
Yes, it's given me words to use. I was always stuck for words, to make things sound better, to make it more readable, user friendly, and I've got words.
Would you say that you've gained confidence?
Absolutely.
I'm not even going to finish that question. Okay, so in terms of your documentation and things, so you use AI through StoryPark, you said? Yeah. And so is that now all your documentation, so all your observations, your planning?
Everything that I do for family daycare as far as documentation goes is through StoryPark. And I started using StoryPark at the start of the year, so that was a challenge in itself, was, getting from one way of doing things to going to another way of doing things and trying to learn how to use StoryPark. That was difficult enough. And I struggled with that for a little while, but now I've got on top of it, and I can use it for everything. I can, message the parents, email the parents, write myself notes into StoryPark, so that if I see a child do an activity that they, a spontaneous activity that I think, oh, I really need to remember that, I'll write it down, and then I can put it into the program and plan for it.
Yep.
So,
yep, that's great. What benefits have you observed? And I think you've touched on some of the benefits of using AI within your service.
The improvement in my time management skills is one thing. Time management skills that was a thing for me. Now I have more time. I feel like I'm doing more work, but I feel like I have more time to do it. So I'm keeping on top of everything.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's really been a huge thing for me, was just being able to move to the next thing, and keep progressing through the day, and happy, because I was quite sad.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you're happy and that AI has helped you be happy, and that's great. So do you think AI enhances the learning experiences for the children in your care?
Yeah. I feel like I've been able to take a lot of follow-up things in my program and use that to create ideas of, follow-up things. Craft activities, really came up with some interesting things that I'd never thought of trying before. And we all use Facebook, we all use Instagram, we all use Pinterest to get ideas of other things, but this was stuff that I'd never seen before.
What about in terms of children's developmental needs and their development? Does it help you in terms of children's development?
Yes, I have noticed that if I have a child, I do specifically have a child that sometimes there is concern, and I can quite easily type in, you know, the age group developmental milestones, and it will come up with this massive list of things that's you know, age appropriate children need to do by that time. And I can sort of say, you know, get the checklist going. Is this a thing? Is this a thing? Is this not happening? Is this happening? Should this be doing this? And you know, that's really been of benefit too. And it takes me 2 minutes.
Yep.
It's so much quicker than going through books and books and books just to make sure that, you know, everything's right. So that's helped.
Yep. So if you have, as an example, something a child does and you think, that's a bit of a concern, can you just ask the question, hey AI,
Absolutely.
this child is this age, this is a concern, is that a concern?
I've done it before, yeah.
Okay, great. And it comes back with?
It comes back with the answers, basically.
The answers.
I mean, and you take from it what you need. You know, you don't, it's not gospel. Like, you can't just follow it to a T. You have to change it to suit yourself. But it's definitely helped me with monitoring developmental milestones.
Beautiful. That's good. Okay. Have you encountered any challenges or limitations with AI technology?
Yes, I have previously looked at things for, the kids have asked for pictures of certain things, and specifically they wanted a kookaburra in a gum tree, and it came back with this, I've never seen anything like it, it's definitely not a kookaburra. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen, but that in itself was funny because the kids, I showed it to them and I said, is this a kookaburra? And they're like, oh, I don't think so.
Yep.
So it does fail, but yeah, I've tried Bing, Microsoft Bing, and for pictures, and that's pretty good.
Yep.
It seems to work quite well.
Yep. So yeah, AI definitely has its limitations, and you do need to work with it. I like using it for getting it to design a picture when you give it several things. So like a female doing this, doing that, doing this, and it comes up with something that sort of puts things together. And often it's not quite what you want, but it's an interesting. So how do you communicate your use of AI with parents?
So I briefly discussed AI with the parents, and the positive feedback has been really, really good. I thought maybe there could be a bit of an issue given the bad rap that AI has. You know, you see on TV all the time, it's, you know, it's trying to rip you off. It's, you know, people are trying to steal your money using AI, and, you know, that's what you see. That's all you hear. There are very few positive things that ever come out of AI, but having said that, the feedback that I've got from the parents has been quite positive, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. And what about with other educators? Do you talk to other educators about how they're using it and how you're using it and get ideas and support each other?
I do have an educator that I speak to, and her and I bounce ideas off each other and use it all the time. You know, we're really, really happy to have it as a tool in our service to help us. And I have spoken to other educators about it. The feedback hasn't been quite as positive, but I just think they probably don't know enough about it to have an opinion. So hopefully we can help them.
Yep, and by sharing your story and how it's helped you do more but also gain time and your confidence and things, that'll be a positive.
It's really helped me.
It has really, really helped you. So are there any specific guidelines or protocols that you follow?
With the program that I use, which is ChatGPT, I do constantly go through and delete what I've typed into the program, and it's only me that has access to the computer anyway, so no one else sees what I've written, but I do delete it. It's a memory thing, so it will just, if you don't delete it, it deletes itself, so you have to keep deleting it. But, you know, I mean, it's just like everything, it's a confidentiality issue, and it's only me that ever sees what I've written, so it's really, yeah.
Yeah. What specific training have you had to effectively use AI tools?
No specific training at all. It's just what I've worked out myself. So I think that anything that anyone could come up with help about AI training would be very useful. I would definitely be interested in
Yep.
learning more and better ways to use it and other ways to use it, you know, just to help us all.
Yep, definitely. And that's what part of tonight's PD in your pocket is all about, is, you know, using AI and some ideas and ways you can use AI. So what resources do you recommend for educators wanting to start using AI to help their program?
So the two main ones that I would use is Microsoft Bing Images. So it seems to, of all the image programs I've used, come up with the most detail and give you what you want. ChatGPT is so basic and so easy to use, and the free version is, in my opinion, as good as the version that you can pay for. But I just use the free version, and it's really, really good. That's probably the only two that I would suggest at this stage.
And I'm guessing that you'd probably suggest give it a go. Just type in one of your observations and see what it comes back with, and how it changes is the language, because often it doesn't actually change the content, it's just changing the words, rephrasing it to make it sound more professional. And you can actually rephrase it and ask it to rephrase it to
Absolutely.
explain to parents, and then, you know, more academically, or, you know, if you've written it, you know, explaining something to parents, then you think, oh, into my program I want to write it a bit more academically, rephrase this comment academically, and it does.
Yeah, it's very, very helpful, because when you're so busy and you're trying to keep up and you're so lost for words,
Yep.
it really helps. Yeah,
Yep.
I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah. So we've now covered that. So how has your perspective on education changed with the introduction to AI, or has your perspective of education?
A lot. I think my positivity now for my job has increased so much compared to how I was 6 months ago. I was absolutely lost, and
Yep.
I really, really think that if I hadn't have discovered a tool to help me, I definitely probably wouldn't be doing this job right now, which makes me sad because I really enjoy it.
Definitely, and it makes me sad because, you know, clearly the children have a great educator here with you, Donna, and they have a great time and things. So that would be very sad if that was the case. So, so in sum up of our conversation about AI, is there any last minute tips or ideas or anything that you want to share with
I just
educators?
think if everything's working out for you the way it is, then that is great. You know, don't change it if you don't want to, but you can always use it to help you. You know, there's always a little thing that maybe you can't work out the answer to, that you just, it's in the back of your mind and you're trying really hard, it's not coming, you just need that help, just try.
So give it a go. And Donna, I would like to say a very big thank you for allowing me to come into your service and to sit here and interview you about your experiences with AI. So thank you for sharing your story. And yeah,
Thank you very much for coming. I really enjoyed our chat.
It was
great.
great too. And I've enjoyed seeing your service. It's nice to put a place and an experience on, when I hear your name now, I'm going to say, I've been there, I know exactly what's going on. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, everyone. So that was Donna. And, Donna had a lamb in her service that she was bottle feeding, and that's probably what you can hear in the background. But one of the things that I really wanted to highlight that Donna talked about was that AI is a tool. It's like a hammer. You don't just pick up a hammer and know how to use it. You don't pick up a hammer and can automatically make an amazing dining table, 8 chairs, the works. You actually need to have a go, practice, and learn how to use it. And it's the same with AI tools. Okay, so moving on a bit more in terms of the safety and the things to think about. So you may have heard the term digital footprint. So a digital footprint is the child's footprint that refers to all the traces of their online presence. So interactions that are created by users, often not the children, and including the sharing of photos or personal information. So things like names, date of births, developing videos, interacting with online content, all of that creates a digital footprint for a child. They now say that most children have a digital footprint before they're even born, so once they're conceived, because of the interactions that their parents have in terms of their results and their videos, the ultrasounds, all of those sort of things. So they're creating this digital footprint. And that's something that we need to keep in mind in terms of what data are we generating about the children that can be linked to those children in the future. Okay, so in terms of safety with AI, my clicker doesn't seem to want to work. So think about things like what are you uploading to AI? Are you just uploading generic information that doesn't actually give away a child's identity? Have children, parents, and families given consent for their child's data to be uploaded to AI? And as I said earlier, that some programs are introducing AI and generative AI within an upgrade. So you tick this app needs upgrading. Yes, okay. And we often don't read the fine print. And that's often where they say, we're introducing AI, these are all the details. So have those conversations with parents about you're planning to use AI, or this is how you use AI. Do you have any concerns? And talk to them about that. So do you read the fine print of apps and programs? And this goes for all apps and programs. It's not just what AI uses. It's all apps and programs, and checking those fine prints and what data is being collected and how that data is being stored, where that data is being stored, and then how is that data used. So thinking about things like empowering parents to withdraw their consent on behalf of their child, that they may have said yes to a particular app or a particular documentation tool, but have now thought about it and thought, well, actually, no, I don't want to do that. They may hear in the media that there's been a data breach for a program that your service may use, and they want to know what information, what data has been shared with that program, and would information about their child be leaked to third parties. How are you going to handle a data breach or something going viral? And this is often an issue when we take photos and share it and include other parents in the sharing of that photo. Because we're taking a photo of a child and sharing it online, we don't know who is taking a photo of the photo or a screenshot, or who's sharing it with their friends and family, who may not have their privacy settings as strict and as strong as you might. And reducing the risk of attracting attention from unrelated users and groups, and especially those inappropriate groups and things like that. We don't want to be feeding those sort of programs. Okay, so in terms of confidentiality, there's different things and they have different terms in terms of what you do and how you do it. So in terms of data being anonymized, being made anonymous is one of the ways that you can reduce children's risk. If you don't put their name in, if you don't put their date of birth in, if you don't put their parents' names, and any kind of information that may link to that child. So it becomes anonymous. You know, a boy, 1 year, 7 months, data. The next one's data masking. So data masking is where it actually asks for information, such as a phone number. And I said this before in terms of the conversational AI, it expects it to be a certain length, or for an address, it expects it to have a number, an address name, and then like a street name and a street type. So whether it's a street, a road, a court, whatever. And if you provide information within those three categories, it can tick off and say, yep, that's correct. If, it's asking for a bank account that might be 8 digits, if you provide 8 digits, it will go, yep, this is okay. Sometimes we can't do things unless we provide those 8 digits. So we might provide 8 digits being 1111 8 times. So we're still providing the information that it requires to move to the next step, but it's not the correct. So we're masking it, giving it another face. Include only relevant data. Do you actually need to put a child's date of birth in to put in information to be able to find out if a child's behaviour is normal or typical? No, you can often put their age. It doesn't give the date of birth. What do you have permission to share? And if you have those conversations with parents and say, well, actually, I'm starting to use AI. I want to talk to you about how I'm going to use it, what I'm going to share. Some parents will say, okay, not a problem. You might get some parents on the other extreme that say, no, definitely don't want you using AI. No, 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 no. Having those conversations and sharing how you're going to use it often helps parents understand that this is going to help you. It's going to save time and might also help with the education of their children. Now, I'm not sure if you're all aware of the National Code, and this was released by ASIQA earlier this year, I think, late last year, not sure, on services, and it's about taking images and videos of children. It does talk a lot about our service follows the National Model Code, and it talks about centre-based care, but it does fit with family daycare, and the things that they bring up are things that we need to think about in our services. So taking photos, where are they being stored? Are they being stored on a family computer that your 15-year-old teenager has access to? Are they being stored on a laptop, and you might take that laptop, it doesn't have a password, you might take it out, I don't know, to do some work in a coffee shop, you get up and go to the toilet and come back, your laptop's gone. And you've got photos of children on there. Those are the sort of things that we need to think about when we're taking photos, and this links to our use of AI. So, accountability with AI use. That was made a mistake. Robot has made a mistake, what happens? And it came up with the sorry thing, which is kind of interesting. Something that you need to remember, you are responsible for all AI-produced documents. So whether you're writing something and getting AI to fix it up a little bit, whatever you fix up and then use in your programming, that's your responsibility. You can't blame AI. AI is not a person or an entity. You are responsible. It always has to have that human last look, check, and all those sort of things. So you are responsible. All AI-based functions and decisions must be subject to human review and intervention. So again, it's your responsibility. If you put the information in there and ask AI to create something and you're going to use that, that's your responsibility. It's like you created it yourself. You've used a tool. If I say, oh, I built this wonderful dining setting with my hammer, it's not the hammer's responsibility. It didn't create it. I use the tool of the hammer to actually create it. So just remember that everything that you do and create with AI is your responsibility. And then reviewing your assurance process or policy. And has there been one put in place for AI? AI is fairly new, and we're only still starting to really embrace it in terms of education and what needs to happen. The university sector went into a mad panic when ChatGPT first came out, and we were having emergency meetings all over the place. And now that the hysteria around it has sort of settled down, and we're starting to work with students and say, well, AI is not going away. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, it's not going away, but we need to actually work in a way, in a society that uses it and understand it, and also teach children and prepare children for the society that they're going into. So being aware and understanding, but also understanding the information that you're sharing and where that's going to go. So has there been a process or policy around the development of AI solutions or the outcomes from those AI solutions? So if you rely on AI in terms of a child's development and you don't check it and go, okay, and you might send something to a parent that says, you know, your child's behavior isn't typical, what's it going to do to a parent? What's going to be the consequences or outcomes of an observation that may have something that you haven't checked and you've just sent on? Hopefully you never do that, and that you don't have to, you know, go through that. But that's something to be aware of, that we need to make sure that the words are accurate. So this was a picture I talked about earlier where I asked for money. I then asked for Australian money. Now, yes, it kind of looks like the colours of the notes are kind of Australian. There's an Australian flag, there's a koala, it looks like a koala, and things. But if you look at the coins, they're not Australian. The words on them aren't English. The pictures on them aren't right. And when you get a chance, and go back through either the slides from this show or the booklet, have a look at all the images. One of the earlier images has a child and she's sort of got a hand like that. If you actually count her fingers, she's got 6 fingers, like she's got an extra finger on one hand. It's on her left hand. These are the sort of indicators that it is AI generated. Also, if you were clever at technologies, you could pull apart the children and their faces are very similar. Their eyes might be a different color, their hair's a different length, but it's like they've created this face and gone bang, 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 or turn that one round slightly, turn that one, make its hair darker to create that image. So as I said, check the content that AI produces, read through your observations that it's reworded or fixed up, and make sure it's correct. You know your families and children. So the only one that can produce accurate observations and plans is you. Yes, you can use the tool of AI to improve them to help you come up with the words, like Donna said, but it's your observation, it's your knowledge of those children and families that help you. You use AI to get ideas and words, but you're not getting observations, and that, you know, AI is never going to step in and form relationships. Again, you're responsible for all AI produced documents. AI is only as good as the questions you ask it. So by asking, I wanted a photo of money, and it came up with coins and notes, and they were all American. I then said Australian money, and that's when it put the flag and the koala. And then I said, make the coins and notes Australian, and it sort of went to, that's sort of like the Queen, but it's not really the Queen, like it's, yeah, anyway, and the colours are similar. So it was the questions. So money didn't work. So think about the questions you ask. Think about AI safety. That's something that you always need to keep in the back of your mind. Am I uploading this information? Do I need to upload this information? Number one, can I make it anonymous? Can I mask it? Can I not put in so much information and still get what I need out of the experience? Confidentiality. Our children and our families are very important, and it wouldn't take much to break that confidentiality with parents and children and families around AI and the information that you share. So just be really conscious of that. And get to know AI, have a go, have a play. create a song, create an image, go into Bing and, work it out. Try a few different ones. Create a kookaburra in a gum tree, and maybe we should have a competition of who can create the best kookaburra in a gum tree. But just have a go. Try a few different questions and see how it works. It's a tool. It's only a tool, and it doesn't replace us. So it's a tool that you can use. You can leave it alone. You can try and push nails in rather than use a hammer if you don't want to use a hammer. And AI is the same. If you don't want to use AI and what you're doing is working really well, like Donna said, keep at it. But for some of us, we need that starting point. We need those extra words, and that's okay as long as we're checking what we're producing. Okay, we're on to questions. Now, I'm just going to take it off full screen. Oh, and there's lots of chat. I'm just going to move that. I'm not sure whether you guys can see all that. Okay, so we've got some hellos. Does anyone have any questions? There's a lot of you. Maybe I should go from the bottom. There's a lot of thank yous, thank yous, thank yous. Great sharing point. Good. And it's the start of the conversation. I noticed with the digital footprint picture, it only has 4 toes. Thank you, Jackie. I hadn't noticed that one, but yes, so there's now a 4 toes and 6 fingers somewhere along that. Okay, doesn't seem to be. Wow, everyone's saying thank you. Doesn't seem to be any questions. I do have some find out more pages here. eSafety Commission, great for lots of things. eSafety, anything eSafety. Go check them out, and the link's there. Early Childhood Australia, great digital technologies and things like that. There's also the Centre for the Digital Child that's coming up with some great research in terms of children and the digital child, and also research around that. Children's digital footprints. So there's a whole interesting sheet that ASIC was put out around their digital footprint. And of course, family daycare in your pocket. And I do have one last slide, which is me. I was wearing headphones and a virtual reality mask and having lots of fun many years ago, but it's a great photo. I didn't actually know that photo was there. Joanne has asked, a lot of information to unpack, definitely. I'm excited to implement. Oh, no, that wasn't the one. Oh, if you have a computer on during the day in your service, does it listen by default? If so, can you switch that on and off? You would have to check what you've got on. But yes, some of them do. It's like when you have a conversation, if you've got your mobile phone and you have Facebook or Instagram open, some of those have the ability to listen to your conversation. So check that out and make sure that you're, not having things going up accidentally. And often what happens is we'll be sitting and I'll be saying to someone, oh, the other day we were talking to Alexa and, and you just say Alexa's name and all of a sudden she starts talking to you. Do we need to take permissions from parents while enrolling the child as safety requirement? I would check with your scheme. I think it's a, how would I say it, moral conversation that I would be having as an educator, that having that conversation that you've started using AI or you're thinking about using AI, or when they enroll that you actually use AI, and don't be afraid to say, I want to make sure that I'm providing you with the best observations and program and written documentation I can, and I use AI as a tool, but I won't upload your child's name, photographs, if that's the way you go, date of birth, any of those kinds of information. Just, yeah, and be honest. Yeah. Okay, we do have some questions. I just found the questions and answers. Which AI is the best to use in childcare settings? Tatiana, hard to say. Because I'm in a university role now, I don't tend to use the apps and programs in a setting as such. Back when I was teaching, my favorite was actually to use PowerPoint and Word, but that wasn't AI, that was pre-AI times. So I use ChatGPT in my work, and I've used it quite a bit with my boys, and even though I'm an early childhood teacher, and I should actually know this stuff, I have used it for ideas and things. So I'm not going to give you this is the best to use, but that is something that you might want to do some research around. The service I use, they actually use Owner, and Owner now has AI built in, which you can turn on and off. So check out the programs that you may be aware of already and see if they do have an AI component, because a lot of them are going that way. Is there an app that educators use where educators with English as a second language can say what they've observed and what they want to say in their OBS, learning stories, etc., in their own language, and it interprets in English? I've been told that some of the programs can do that. I'm not aware in terms of an early childhood educator specific one. I have been what's it called? I have been using ChatGPT for some words and things that you can say, how do you say this in English? Or how do you say this in a particular language? And things, but I'm not fully aware of exactly which one. But Google's your friend. Do a Google search or a Bing search or a whatever search engine you use. Do a search engine search and put in, and it will come back with a list of things. And then just, find out what others think. Ask the question of other educators. Does anyone use this? Because I know that there are other educators out there that do speak in their home language and have it translated for them. Can you break it down again, like activities for 1.5 years? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but I suggest you watch this again, and you can slow it down to your speed. And things like that. And also make sure you download the booklet. Can the use of AI in children's education potentially restrict their development of critical thinking skills and independent problem-solving abilities with peers and educators? Wow, that's a really good question, and I do really like that. And I would say, yes, it can, or it could, and it depends on how you're using it. If you're overusing it and not teaching them critical thinking skills. If I was to say, show my boys a picture of that money and say, this is Australian money, and they just went, oh, okay, that would be an issue for me. That would be a red flag. I would be saying to them, have a look at the information, the picture, and see, is that money that you've seen me use, other people use, and get them to really think about, actually, that's not correct. Do children only have 4 toes on their foot? Do they have 6 fingers on one hand? Well, maybe AI created this image and it's not a photo, but it's made to look real. So having those things, even questioning the question, so that problem solving, well, AI didn't quite get it right. How do you think they went wrong? Or, how could we fix it up so they're actually getting it right and things like that? So teaching those skills, those underlying skills to be critical thinkers. is important. And also, because I've done many sessions over the years in terms of technologies and using technologies and the internet, and how you actually introduce them with children. And if they see, something on the internet, how do they know it's real? Someone's uploaded it. Well, how do you know that it's real? My boys are into watching YouTube and people creating large sizes of chocolate bars, usually. And then they say, I want to go and buy one. They don't exist. These people are making them up for your entertainment and teaching them that not everything on TV or on the internet is real. And that's really important. Is it a requirement to inform parents and families that you are using AI in your documentation? I haven't found anywhere that says you need to inform them. Again, check with your scheme, because they might have a policy around it. They may be looking into a policy because it is still fairly new and people don't necessarily understand it altogether. So yeah, I would be checking that out. But I myself, as an educator, I would want to have that conversation with parents just to let them know that yes, I'm using it, and yes, I'm using it in this way, and these are my promises to them. If they don't want me, using AI with their child or their child's observations, not a problem. That's not an issue. And being really honest, I would, hit that. Thanks, Amaya. If I use a child's first name on observation, am I breaking confidentiality? Not necessarily, but think about what other information you're providing. Is it creating more of a digital footprint or something that can be linked to them? It's one of those things that, using a first name. I often use Bob and Beth, Bob being the male name and Beth being the female name when I'm doing this sort of stuff, just because they're quick, easy names to type and things, and I'm not doing it. But also, do you really need to put the child's first name? Can you say child is doing this, and then when you actually write it up, so you're not putting the child's name into AI as such, but in your observation, and if you copy what AI has written or parts of what AI has written, you can then add the child's name, so you're not doing that. Sorry, that question was based off your questions about AI, about 10 activities on sustainability for children. It gave 10 activities, but didn't take into consideration the ages because it came up with activities involving blasting. Yep, not a problem. And I think that is all the questions. So I'm actually going to end it there. If there's no more questions. No worries. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. And yeah, good luck with your experiences with AI.